If you received news that you were gonna die, how would you live your life after hearing that? Now today I want to talk about a book that I just read. Very emotional book. Great, fucking great book. The title is called When Breath Becomes Air. It's about an author. Well, the author. It's about himself. Paul Kalanithi, and it's a memoir about his life, and it's also his experience with his illness, stage 4 terminal lung cancer. It was a very emotional book, very beautiful book. It's gotten me to reflect a lot, and I would like to share it with you. Now the book starts off with Paul's early life. Pretty much, growing up, Paul really loved reading books. He loved reading books, specifically English literature. So it wasn't really a surprise when he moved on to college that he pursued English literature in order to be a philosopher. So, but as he was doing this, he soon realized that philosophy wasn't really for him. And he discovered that moral speculation is puny compared to moral action. Now, see, Paul wanted to create an impact in this world, like a real positive impact, and he realized that just by debating on what's right and what's wrong was not really making much of a difference in this world. So instead of getting a PhD in English literature, Paul went on to do other things. He went to Yale University to pursue medicine, where he graduated as an honor student, and he also met the love of his life, who is going to be his future wife. During Paul's time of being a neurosurgeon, he realized that when he first started that it was really demanding. We're talking about like 100 hours, like 100 hours weeks. I mean, like, you have no life outside of this. Your work becomes everything. And also that you got to be extremely, extremely careful, because one little mistake can be the difference of, what can be a success, a triumph, and what's going to turn out a tragedy. And to be a neurosurgeon means that sometimes you got to make really tough calls, really hard decisions, and based on your judgment, that sometimes you have to choose in cases of emergencies who to operate on, based on who you think has better chances of having to be able to live after. Now, at the age of 35, when Paul was at his at the absolute peak of his career, just perhaps maybe we're talking about like a couple of years before really enjoying the fruits of all his hard work, all the hard labor that he's put into over the years, Paul got diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer, lung cancer. I mean, of course, this was an absolute shock to Paul, because from being the patient, from being a doctor that's treating the patient, he is now the patient being treated by the doctor. Sometimes you really think that life is full of ironies. But Paul is such a resilient individual. He believes that one should not avoid suffering, but instead one should be able to confront suffering, in the face of death even, and to be able to get comfortable with it and strive as an individual, as a human being. And that is what really makes life meaningful. Paul searches for his values as he is confronted with death, because he wanted to choose how to spend the rest of his life in the most meaningful way that he could. But he found this as a challenge. He found it really difficult because that people's values are always changing. It could change based on how much time you have, your circumstances, where you are in life. So he found this really difficult because he did not know whether he had 1 year left to live or whether he had 10 years left to live. You know, this is very interesting. And one of my favorite quotes in this was that Paul wanted to be able to, one of my favorite quotes was that until you're dead, or just because you're dying, until you're dead, you're still living. I think this is a fucking great quote. You know, it shows how courageous, how courageous Paul is, and that he did not let cancer dictate or ruin his life. And he chose to live until his very last breath. And he did not give up. You know, even though Paul got terminal cancer, as soon as he got better, as soon as the treatment started showing some signs of improvement, straight away he went straight back to work. He even brought his baby daughter into this world, and he lived his life as best as he could. Unfortunately, the treatment stopped working not long after, and after 2 years of battling with his cancer, Paul unfortunately passed away at the age of 37, about 10 months after his baby passed away. No, after his baby was born. Now, although what happened to Paul was tragic, I mean, by no means his life was a tragedy. He had great people around him. He had a wife that was supportive, that was always there by his side. Family and friends who were extremely supportive. And Paul got to do what he loved to do. And he lived the life as best as he could. And I think there's something that we can learn from this, and that, to be honest, life is really what you make it. And I think that, we can all learn something from this book. And yeah, I think this was a great book. Thank you all for watching. This was my summary, and I look forward to making more of these in the future.